going to continue our discussion of relationships by extending the idea of correlation to create a model that's called a regression line to help us predict and establish causation between two variables. But we're going to find that having a linear relationship alone for observational data is not going to imply causation. So we need to be incredibly careful when we're using scatter plots to establish causation, because most of the time we have to acknowledge that a strong correlation does not imply that the two variables have a causation relationship. So let's take a look at this case study. If we could predict the future of the stock market, we could make a tremendous amount of money. So since the stock market has such a potential for making money, people spend their careers just poring over data, looking for patterns. There's actually some really surprising methods that people use for trying to make predictions about the stock market. It's an interesting observation that there's this Super Bowl indicator. And what it says is that for the Super Bowl that's played in January or February, it can predict how stocks will behave each year. So the NFL was formed by merging the original NFL with the American Football League. There's two conferences. There's the National Football Conference and there's the American Football Conference. So what this indicator is saying is that the stock market goes up when a team from the NFC, which was the old NFL, wins, but it goes down when an AFC team wins. You might be thinking that that's a strange way to predict the future of the stock market. But this indicator has been right 38 out of 48 years, from the first Super Bowl in 1967 to 2014. Now, in this legend, we do recognize that the Baltimore Ravens, we're going to consider them an old NFL team because technically they were the Cleveland Browns before that franchise moved to Baltimore in 1996. Also, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also an NFC team, though they were neither a pre-merger team nor an old NFL team and started out as an AFC team. But for this indicator to be right 75% of the time, that's a pretty impressive indicator. So, according to this indicator, if in 2015 the Patriots, which was an AFC team, won the Super Bowl, then the Super Bowl indicator would predict that stocks would fall in 2015. So would you use that as enough argument to avoid investing in 2015? So what we're going to be doing in this chapter is looking at the statistical methods used to predict one variable from another. And that's more than just looking at ups and downs. We're going to be able to distinguish between the ability to predict one variable from others and use the issue of whether changes in one variable are caused by changes in another. So if you think that it just is a coincidence that the Super Bowl indicator seems to be happening, well, by the end of the chapter, you're actually going to have some critical skills to evaluate this indicator.